Good morning, everybody. Today Bubba's out fishing, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about telecommunications and staying connected with internet while you're traveling on the road full time. And I know this is a huge challenge that all of us face at some point or another. For us, it's a matter of us being able to do our banking and taking care of business and being able to upload our YouTube videos and access our email. A lot of people are still working full-time jobs and have to be connected all the time. And it's just something that we're always trying to find the next best way to do. Now, recently when we were at the HDT rally, Brian from RV Mobile Connect gave us a presentation on a system that he has developed based on his 40 plus years in the telecommunications industry, and it's working extremely well for them. I'm going to share with you in a little bit the entire presentation from the rally. I have edited out some of the extraneous parts and just tried to keep it to the informational segments of it. But there's a few points that I wanted to share with you before we dive into that, things that I think are important to pay attention to. One of them is that with his system, he's using all military grade equipment. And there are a lot of Wi-Fi boosters and cell phone boosters out there, and they're not cheap. And they all serve a purpose, but what you find with a lot of these is not only do they boost your signal, but they also boost the noise as well. By using military grade equipment, he has found equipment that helps you boost those signals, but not boost all that noise that goes along with it. And that makes a big difference in the quality of the signal you're getting. The price, that is something that if you're interested, you need to contact Brian at RV Mobile Connect and talk to him about what your needs are. Let him figure out or help you figure out what the right system is that you need and then figure out pricing on it. But keeping in mind something like a WeBoost costs between $500 and $600. When you take that into consideration, then paying for a system that you're going to have a lot better clarity of signal, I think in the end is really worth it if you're going to be using it a lot. Another thing that we pulled from this is with his system, you can boost Wi-Fi and you can boost cellular. And this system's going to kind of look for whatever's going to give you the best signal and use it. So some systems you have to have one to boost Wi-Fi, and then you have to have something completely different to capture and boost cell signal. This is kind of an all-in-one, which is great. It has 2 SIM card slots in most of his routers. I believe there's one router that has 1 SIM card slot. The other ones have 2. What this means is you can get a data SIM card from, say, Verizon and another one, say, from AT&T. And then the system's going to search for the best signal and use the best signal it can find. So that's a nice thing to have if you need connectivity 100% of the time. And you can put those 2 SIM cards in, have 2 different data plans, and then you're able to use whichever one's going to be best. So anyways, I just wanted to maybe kind of highlight some of those things so you can look for them in his presentation and hopefully answer a few questions up front about it. If you do contact him and it's based on watching this video, we ask please let him know that you heard about it from us. It helps us out, and it also kind of helps him track where he's getting his contacts from as well. So with that, let's go ahead and cut to his presentation at the HDT rally, Staying Connected on the Road.
So, Cindy, what was the guidelines you put down for us going on the road?
I had to have connectivity all the time or I wouldn't have my job.
So, I think that's a budgetary issue for us. So, it's also a healthcare issue for us, which is important to us. So, anyhow, actually, Jim, I'm going to ask Jim, put Jim on the spot to talk about it because he and I spent some quality time in Oklahoma. does have. But anyhow, we talked a lot about this, and Jim and I talked about our fears, and we talked about what's needed and all that, because to be honest, I went out and solved this for me. Because I've been in telecommunications, data communications technology for almost 40 years, if I don't know them, they're probably dead or they just don't care anymore. So that was part of the thing, is about 18 months before we hit the road, Cindy put the dictum out that if we don't figure this out, you know, and I thought, well, every park has Wi-Fi, right? Yeah, that's kind of what I learned. I thought I should probably get serious about this. I actually looked at Fire Ranger, I looked at a whole lot of things. So over the course of about 18 months, I looked at things that would work, I looked at things that I didn't think would work, and then I came up with what's been rocking and rolling for us, and actually Jim's got the same system like me now. And what do you think, Jim? Don't throw me under the bus here.
We met Bryan and Cindy while we were at Willow Retreats for 5 months, and they were one of the first couples that we really had an opportunity to sit down and talk to. And because of their background in IT, we had a lot of conversations over a lot of beers, cups of coffee, and dinners. And one of the things that we, all four of us, agreed on was that we needed connectivity while on the road, and I gave my stories of woe, and I'd be happy to give any of you my 2 cents worth on connectivity on the road. But we were fortunate enough, and I think some of you in this room have probably benefited from us recommending the Verizon MiFi hotspot device, the unlimited one that Verizon put out for about 6 months and then canceled. We've still got it. It's grandfathered. It's totally unlimited. It's $65 a month, and it works great. The problem with the MiFi device is that it's an internal box. It's a small box, and it's a small antenna. And I'm trying to get cellular signal from that MiFi device from a real small box. Not only that, but it's inside my coach with 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. I'm in a box. I'm trying to get an outside signal from a cellular antenna that might be 5 miles away. So then it got to the point where Kelly and I would start running around with that MiFi device and saying, is this window better? Is this window better? Is that window better? We upload to YouTube at least 15 gig per week. That's not including the downloads that we use to stream and to run our channel. It's just a fact of life for us. Would we die if we didn't have it? No. Does Cindy need it for her job? Yes. Would that cut off their income and they couldn't have this wonderful lifestyle? A lot of you were in the same boat. So we had a number of conversations. I even went out and I bought one of those silly little plastic antennas with the suction cups to stick on the window for my MiFi device. Is it going to give me an extra bar? And these are the conversations that Bryan and Cindy and Kelly and I all had. I explained to Bryan 2 years ago, I purchased a competitor to WeBoost. That it was a $1,000 investment and created more problems than it fixed. And I'm sure Bryan's going to talk about a lot of that today. We decided, Bryan and Cindy and Kelly and I decided to go together and partner into a venture. And when I found out it was going to cost me 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, I said, wait, whoa. We don't have that kind of time to submit, but we would be willing to support their endeavor because we have a system that they're now running with. It's proved to be far superior than anything else we've ever tried before. Is it the end all? Probably not, but for us, it works extremely well. We've entered into an affiliate association now with Bryan and Cindy, and we're just extremely pleased. So I think they've got a great product.
Wow. Woo. Did I pay you for that? So the reason why we're here is because I want to make sure that I level set with people so they understand the difference between what Wi-Fi and cellular is. I hear people say, oh, yeah, we're courtside, there's no, or courtside, no Wi-Fi. Where do you think Wi-Fi comes from, right? You know, what it is, I happen to be a subject matter expert for Lucent, who helped invent it. And Wi-Fi is the same thing as, you know, those Ethernet cables, right? That's all, that Wi-Fi was designed to be a wireless Ethernet cable, right? So Wi-Fi is how you're going to connect, right? And I'll explain some of the nuances on that, right? And, you know, I want to help you create a plan. I don't need to or have to sell anything. The reason why I put this together was after talking to Jim and the constant nagging from Mike Aber. It's like, you know, there are people that need this, and you know, they're ordering coaches and they're ordering the Wi-Fi Ranger, and then they're upset with me because it doesn't work. And so I said, this is a commercial product, you know. Do I look like I sell commercial products for a living? Especially where, this is, by the way, this is our weekend shirt, because we do video conferences for work, so this indicates to me, oh, not Monday through Friday, right? So anyhow, I just want to share whatever I can. So this is the interactive part of the program, right? So what do you do to stay connected? So anybody use public Wi-Fi or RV park Wi-Fi consistently? Didn't think so. Cell phone. Now that's, you know, that's just not talking on the phone. That's using your phone as a hotspot. And that works pretty good. And for a lot of you, that's all you need, right? Hotspots, like what Jim talked about, the little Wi-Fi device, right? Those are good. Some of them you can have antennas for. It's going to help you a little bit, right? Something else, right? I'm beginning to see Starlink. What's your something else?
So I'm running a AT&T home internet wireless router off of the AT&T phone card with an external antenna and a Wi-Fi Ranger to send my signal out.
So it's a cellular solution through AT&T?
It's a cellular card and a different device with possible throttling.
Possible, okay.
Possible for 40
Well, that was
bucks.
nice. And so is your experience with all that good? Whose problem is solved? Okay.
Let me reframe it. As long as there's a cell signal, my problem is solved.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and that's a big part of it, and I'm going to talk about it. So I'm going to do some level setting here, so please bear with me, right? So is a router a home or a mobile device? And the answer is it's on both, right? The only difference between it is, does it connect to DSL from the phone company or to cable modem from, or on the bottom there, you put a SIM card in there and you pick a vendor, right? That's what the difference is. It's really the same thing, only the cellular routers, and I've got some examples over there of the Cradlepoints. They are everything that other router is. Matter of fact, if you take this thing home, and that's part of my whole strategy for us and for you guys, is if I invest in this router, why don't I use it at home? Or like we're going to be out of our coach for a couple weeks. It's going to go with us and it's going to get plugged into the hotel, and we're going to use that DSL, right? So you can use this thing anywhere. So it's just a little more capability, okay? Wi-Fi exists from the other side of the router, because believe it or not, your cell phone, when you're using it as a hotspot, is a router. Your MoFi device, your whatever the hotspot is, Seago, that is a router too, okay? So the difference is this is that wireless last piece, right, that you use to connect all the goodies that you can surf with, stream with, all of that. Any questions on that? This is the no dumb part, or no dumb questions part of the program. Damn, I'm doing a good job. So Cindy hates the slide because it's busy, and I won't take a poll on that because I don't like losing. But basically, just to give you an idea of, and you're going to see these symbols in here a lot, right? This is your router, this is the Wi-Fi symbol, right? And no matter what you do, unless you use physical wire, you're going to use Wi-Fi too. So basically the internet provider, whoever it is, the cable guy, the cellular guy, whatever, connects to a router somehow. This could be RV Park, could be Starbucks, could be your coach, right? And like here, this example, they put outdoor antennas in Starbucks. They do internal antennas, and you connect to it. This is one of the things I want to talk about because I think I would never do it in someone else's session, but the session on Monday was oh yeah, if you have to log in, it's secure. So let me put it to you this way: if you were to give everybody in this room and everybody else that you don't know your Wi-Fi password, is it now secure still? Do you know everybody? Do you trust? I mean, it's, there's some suspect characters in this room, but, imagine people on the outside of the park, right? There's some real jokers there, but I'm kidding. Anyhow, but the idea is that just because it has an SSID and a login, it's not secure. If you're the only one that knows the password, or you and people you trust are the only people, then your level of security goes up exponentially. Make sense? Everybody good with that? So yeah, so this is how we all connect, right? But this is really the same as your sticks and bricks. It's really the same thing, only you're adding cellular. Hell, you could take one of those, plug it into your sticks and bricks, and use the cellular, and you'd be good there too. Okay? But that private Wi-Fi piece is a big piece towards keeping it secure. Because I'm telling you, there's an application on here, I can get on public Wi-Fi, and I can see all of the traffic that everybody does. I can see passwords, I can see everything. And that should be concerning to everybody, especially if you're banking, if you're doing all of that. Cindy, how are we doing?
Outstanding.
She's standing so she doesn't fall asleep. Right? So this is the high level of what cellular internet looks like, right? Hey, just like before, you have the internet, but now you're adding the public phone network, right? Ma Bell, right? Or whoever else, right? Now it connects to the cellular carrier, who then connects to the cellular tower, who then delivers this not over Wi-Fi, right? Because now the routers have moved out, right, in your phone hotspot or your RV, and then the Wi-Fi is local to you. Does that make sense? I really want to demystify this because there's a lot of people that are really kind of wound up about it. Now let me tell you what my router, anybody else's router, isn't going to do. It's not going to make the internet faster when it's congested, right? So I wanted to give everyone sort of a graphic of what it is, right? Two big reasons why it, when you're like here, I mean, I'm getting over 200 megabits early in the morning because we wake up early, right? Then around 8 o'clock, I'm getting about 30 megabits, which is still pretty dang good, right? We can stream, we can do everything we want on that, right? But the two choke points is the internet fast to the tower we're at, right? And then how many users are here, right? So most of us get affected by the speed here. We were at the Oasis in Las Vegas. Who's been there? Huge park, 1,000 spaces, huge hotels, huge condo things. And in the morning, 60, 70 megabits. In the evening, despite my great router and antenna, it didn't matter. It wasn't a signal issue. There was probably 8,000 people streaming, right? Because no one wants to pay for cable anymore, right? So or watch Jim and Kelly or Aaron and Tina or Cat and Bubba, and if I'm missing anybody else, sorry, right? Watching their videos. So does this make sense to people? Why? So Starlink, who has not heard of Starlink? And it's okay if you raise your hand, Mike. So Starlink, if you've been at a park, and there's actually, I saw one here, it's got this great big round dish, and it's flat, or just a little bit concave, right? But it's big and it's flat, and it sits on, and it actually tracks, right? So I just want to explain what this is because a lot of people think, well, once Starlink is here, the world will be saved. The internet, it's going to be all better because this is what they envision. I don't know if you can see all those little dots. They see basically a whole grid of low Earth orbit satellites, right? This is a really clever idea. It's not too different than what satellite communications has been doing for years, but it's much lower and they're done in a mesh, right? And they basically track you around the Earth. What is interesting about this is, they're in beta test right now, right? So you talk to people in parks who have it and they go, oh my God, it's fat. I get 100 megabits, 150 megabits, right? There's 3 users. So the same math applies, right? Don't get me wrong, for people in rural and stuff like that, it's going to be a great solution. And they're going to be able to up the bandwidth. The problem is satellite communications is limited by radio frequency. Radio frequency is controlled by physics, right? Not to talk over anybody's head, there's a certain amount of bandwidth you can get in those channels authorized for satellite, right? And they're just going to have to add more channels or add more satellites, right? Both of which are feasible, but then it begins to present itself as a cost problem. So this is kind of what they're looking at. The mobile piece of this is not yet ready. I've talked to people who say, oh, 6 months. I'll take the bet if anybody wants to bet me on that, but I don't think that is the case, right? The reality of it is this actual photo of what it looks like, right? So they're limited implementation. It's a really cool idea, and it's going to solve a lot of problems, but it's going to be a piece of the puzzle, not the whole puzzle. Any questions on Starlink? Good. Anyone want to ask about how I get the car on and off the truck?
What's the percentage of downtime is right? Because they don't have enough constellations that are doing that.
Well,
Like up for an hour and then down for 2 hours.
no, what they do is they're only deployed in certain regions, right? And so if you're in that region, you're up, right?
All the time.
You're up all the time. If you're out of that region, you get nothing, right? So that's part of the challenge. So I'm going to, real quick on this slide, I look at this for...
Yeah, Ryan.
Yes.
Not a question my neighbor has.
Oh, I think it's just generally about Starlink. How many downlink stations do they actually have today that they can go up, come right down to that downlink to save on speed? Those type of things. Do you know how many they have today?
Today, I think it's less than 5.
Less than 5.
Yeah, there's not a lot. I
Earth stations.
This is in beta, and Earth stations,
So they're
to be
only-
honest, are the easy part.
They're
right?
only 10% into this right now, aren't they? Or-
Yeah. It is early, right? They're kind of proof of concepting and getting people to pay for it, which is
Yeah.
really good, right?
That's
So,
fine.
and there was,
Well, no, it's just my neighbor has it up in Washington, we're in the beta zone.
right?
And he's actually getting 20 to 30 minutes, and he'll drop away for 15 to 20 minutes.
Ah.
And then it comes back up.
That's because that array is not fully deployed yet.
Correct.
Yeah. So it just depends, because before they weren't putting anybody into beta unless they were covered, right? So to your point, right? But apparently they like selling those things for $500. So I look at this as 3 different ways. There's a basic connection. Some of you talked about using that enhanced. Some of you use that. Some of us use this, right? I looked at this thing this is for us for work. Nobody else is going to want or need this. And then I was proven wrong every RV park we go at. You're connected? How are you connected? I work. I have to do this, and then I have to drive to the Starbucks and upload a file, right? Or do whatever, download my email. So I look at it as kind of a basic, enhanced, or an advanced. Whatever works for you, right? So what should be your plan for staying connected, right? Stream movies, YouTube, Netflix, anything like that? Do you do online banking, other activities? Who works from the road, either full or part-time? That's more people than I thought. Eating ice cream doesn't count as working. He works me over every time I talk to him. Anyhow, right? If you work, do you do video conferencing? Do you have to stay connected, right? That's a big piece for us. Is Cindy, sometimes we're closing down for the day, and then her boss calls and said, we've got a conference call with the CEO or the leadership of Chase Bank. and I've got to be on Zoom in 30 minutes, right? And we're shutting things down. It's like, okay, let's shut it back up. So we actually leave ours. Ours is wired into the 12-volt system, so it's on all the time. You know, if connecting multiple devices, that was the big pain in the rear end prior to having the router, is having to constantly change my Wi-Fi assignments, what I was connecting devices to. And if you have a TV and an Alexa or, you know, whatever it is, then you're constantly moving those things around, right? Does what you have, does it work for you, right? Ask yourself that, right? How important is it to stay connected? And I'm not saying all the time, but it's friends, family, right? A couple people ask me, so is your session about like Facebook groups or some new software? No, but it's how you connect to it. So I guess it's cousins. And then what is your budget, right? Everybody's on a budget. We'd be on a very tight budget if Cindy didn't stay connected. So you know, ask yourself, am I getting my money's worth? Any questions? This is way less interactive than I thought it was. So, this is a good reason to put a unicorn picture in. So, right. So the key pieces of the puzzle, right, putting your plan together, is the unicorn is the high use data plan. So Jim talked about that grandfathered Verizon plan. So Jim, do you know what happens when your little MoFi device dies? Does the plan die with it?
No.
No, you get a new one.
But you get another one. But you have to use what they give you.
I have to buy another.
Okay, you have to buy another one.
But I was able to pull the SIM out of it and put it in my router.
Winner, okay? So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. I don't answer questions individually. This has taken me more time to understand the ins and outs, because the cellular guys used to hand these things out because there wasn't a cellular router fast enough to eat up data. Cindy and I go between 350 and 500 gig a month, right? That's work, that's streaming, watching our friends on YouTube, you know, and all of that. But that's a ton of data, right? That's a lot of data. I never tracked it at home, right? Because I didn't have to, but if you've got a cell plan, right, that's tough, right? If you've got a grandfather plan, make sure you keep it as long as you can, protect it like it's the most valuable thing, because staying connected wise, it really is, right? Always think of a backup plan. Cindy and I have 2 AT&T plans. We have a T-Mobile plan, and these are just data SIMs, and I have a T-Mobile unlimited hotspot. I'm looking for that unicorn for me, which is an unlimited Verizon plan, right? What's happening, and I'll just spend a minute on this, what's happening is they are really cracking down, because the modems, like in these guys, are gigabit Ethernet fast. They're fast, they can stream a lot of data. So when that 5G clicks on, or you've got an enhanced 4G, you know, you can stream. The fastest I've seen is about 280 megabits. I can use a lot of data at 280 megabits, right?
You touched on it just then, so are those modems 5G capable too?
I'm gonna get there. Good question though. Actually, there's almost nothing that is really 5G capable, right? Cradlepoint, who's really the leader in this, because they work closely with the carriers, released their completely standard 5G router, and it began shipping June 2nd. So
I have a MoFi 4500, and I've got an unlimited AT&T last year, and it worked great for about 3 or 4 months. And then all of a sudden, I started getting dropped after about 20 minutes of use. Now, I used to do Dish, and then I just started streaming, and I'm like, wow, there's so much out there. But the point where I'm having difficulty is this unlimited plan. If you're lucky to get one of those truly unlimiteds that don't get throttled, don't get managed, then yeah, hold on to that like gold. But they switched me to a T-Mobile unlimited, and it's good, but there's areas where you'll get T-Mobile cell coverage, not data coverage.
Yeah, you know, I could spend a half an hour on this, and I won't, but I will talk to anybody who wants to know more about it. The game has changed. the game of the unlimited. So anyone has noticed now, you can't buy an unlimited data plan anymore, even if you buy their hotspot. They are not available. They'll say unlimited, you read the fine print. After this amount of speed, you're throttled. You're typically throttled to 600 kilobits, right? That's 3G speed. You remember the old analog modem that made all the noise? It's a little faster than that, right? I mean, it's slow. And the reason is because they were actually getting abused, right? So who has bought an unlimited data plan from one of the internet guys and had it stop working? Anybody? Right? So what's happened is there was a lot of resellers that were buying lots of SIM cards designed for tablet plans, right? If you have an iPad or another tablet, how much data can you use on that, right? I mean, even if you're on it 24 hours a day, streaming constantly, there's a limit to how fast you can go because tablets don't have the fastest modems. They were taking those and selling them to people for MoFis or for pep waves, or Cradlepoints. And they saw the abuse and they began shutting people down for abusive terms. Right? So then these guys would go buy more, and then they say, oh, no. I mean, I bought one from kind of a brand name web guy who will go unmentioned, and I've had to replace the SIM 4 times in 6 months, right? That is my backup now because it's a pain in the butt.
But it always seemed to be related to when we would hit over 300 gig.
Yeah. Once we get up.
Mysteriously, the SIM would go bad, and we'd have to get a new SIM, and it would take them 5 days to turn it back up.
So I'm working with a guy who is going to give me, I'm asking for a couple of different plans. I want to get them from all the carriers where you can buy something and it will cost a little more, but you're going to get 500 gig or 800 gig. And I think for most of us, it's going to be plenty of that, right? Until the next thing comes along, right? You need to think about what your equipment is, right? Is your hotspot capable? If you can get an antenna, do you stay in or out of town, right? If you're in town, you might not need anything unless you need it for the other reasons. Cell signal boosters, right? The problem with those, and I'll just spend a second on this because I get asked this a lot, is they amplify cell signal. They also amplify noise, right? So if your phone's not working great and you amplify it, the noise is also getting amplified. And so it might connect you and you might be able to make a call on it or do a little bit of data. But the problem with those is there's a thing called MIMO or carrier aggregation where that's how you get speeds of above 10 megabits is you have multiple channels glued together, and that's how the cell phone guys get you faster speeds. Cell boosters only use one channel, right? So from a data perspective, it sucks, right? It really is not the answer. But it's a good emergency backup. A couple other pieces, right? What type of flexibility do you need? That made me throw up. I mean, the backs don't do that, do they? I don't think mine ever did, right? So, will you need to move your device out of your RV? My answer was no. I mounted it in a really good place, and I was so clever. It's like, I'm gonna have to take that out when we go to Texas. So think about that, right? Think about redundancy. Do you need dual SIMs? Do you need dual modems, right? So there's some upside to there. Do you need 2 modems, right? That's another way to approach it, or a hotspot and a modem. Everybody with me? Yep. Right, so what will a cellular router do for you, right? It's going to build you a private Wi-Fi network in and around your coach, right? I've got a couple antennas back there. My lovely assistant, would you hold one of those up, please? So this is slightly beefier than the little tape-on thing you put in your window, right? Oh, look at that. Thank you, Vanna.
Thank you.
Right, so those will also put the Wi-Fi signal outside your coach because we're not always in, right? It'll connect you to many sources. So this is key, right? So besides cellular, right, you can get on Wi-Fi. What's a trusted Wi-Fi? If your neighbor's got Wi-Fi, they don't mind sharing. If you're mooch docking at a friend or relative's house, if you're harvest hosting and they say, oh, here's Wi-Fi and everybody else is gone and you're the only one on it, maybe you can trust that, right? So you can actually use their Wi-Fi as a source for you to connect. You know, again, you know, you can use DSL if you're in a hotel, whatever, right? So you can use all of that, and it can actually travel with you. It counts your bits, right? So an English friend of mine used to call them jiggly bits. He was referring to something else. I'll leave that to your imagination. But when you count your bits, it's important because my T-Mobile plan, I have 100 gigabits, right? So when I'm using that, I set my router that when I reach 99.95, shut that off and turn on the other one, right? It's a pretty cool thing. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to track it. I don't have to do any of that, right? Very cool feature, right? It allows you to split it up. It allows you to do other things. You can actually, if you have two modems, you can actually use both of them at once. Router allows you to use high gain antennas. I can't tell you how much time I spent on antennas, but I worked with the CEO of Parsec when he was a pup. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with. I didn't know he was CEO and founder. One of the Cradlepoint guys said, go talk to Parsec. I did. He remembered me because I was a CTO at Alcatel-Lucent, and apparently I was nice to him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm on a good day.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Anyhow, but those grew up in the oil fields in North Dakota and West Texas and all of that because towers were 50 miles away, right? So they put them up, and those were the only things that were connecting. Okay. Now they're used in first responders and all of that. And then security, right? I talked about Wi-Fi security, but you can get advanced, and I won't go into it now, but there's a built-in firewall, you can do VPN, you can do other things, and I recommend if you want to learn more about those, learn more about them, right? Very, very good security tools. So what did we choose, right? We needed all of the above on that. We need to, we need to have a budget, so I need to keep her connected, right? So we could have a budget. And so we chose Cradlepoint. You get that already. I chose Parsec. I'm looking at a lot of other antennas because I've discovered not everything is a big fifth wheel or a Class A. There's things called Airstreams they don't want to drill holes in. There's Class Bs with fiberglass roofs. So I'm constantly looking at other antennas. And I'll show you the results of our testing. Right? First of all, why did we choose them? So this was really important to me. I used to have a high-level security clearance, and when I was CTO at Alcatel-Lucent, we began learning about equipment that was phoning home. It was gleaning data, right? It was streaming, or it was stripping data off of and forwarding it to other countries. Okay, so that was important to me. So Cradlepoint is approved for use military, DOD, three-letter agencies, first responders. It is #1 in first responders. I assure you, if there's anybody out here that's a first responder that's not using Cradlepoint, I'd be surprised. They saturate and own that market. They're headquartered in Boise, right? Who knew? We planned on coming here for a long time, and there we are. It's used in commercial applications, so healthcare, mining, retail, all kinds of other things, right? So it's a really flexible product, right? The engineering is second to none. Here's the other important thing. These are built to be rugged, right? Both these and the antennas, very, very rugged. And why? Well, what do we call when we move an RV, an earthquake on wheels, right? If it's not rugged, how do I know if that antenna is shaking itself to death up there and even still works, right? It's actually manufactured, parts are in the US and parts are in Taiwan, which is a legal place for use in government products. And then, well, we don't need to talk about the rest. So a couple of people said, do we really need a commercial product? That is a silly question to ask this group of people, right? Why are you using HDT? Safety, security, it's cool, right? It's best in class for pulling because that's what it's built to do, right? That's why, right? I didn't have a good picture of my truck. So I did some testing, right? So this is the setup we have in our rig, and this is my cell phone. Only it's blue, but so I tested one way, connecting with Wi-Fi to my router and antenna that way, and then just my phone, turning Wi-Fi off and just going phone and testing like that. I'm hoping you guys can see these numbers. So Morgan Hill, California, 1,000 trails. Anybody been there? Right? Crappy AT&T service. If you've got Verizon, it's good. And we were tucked all the way back in one of the few big spots we could actually fit in. So this is the first trip. We were in Vegas for almost 2 months. My mom got sick and passed away, so I didn't have the brain power to be able to do anything there. So when we got on the road, this is literally, we got out, I got my phone, I did a test because I thought, we're gonna be here for 4 weeks. I need time to be able to do this. So I began testing, and it was 0.8 up and 0.8 down. It's like, when they're trying to upload, it's brutally slow because they're downlink speed, right? And you'll see that as a trend, right? But it's like, I can work with that. So it supports both. It has a 1 gig modem in there. It's just 4G, okay? So this is going to answer Dave's question. These two are just 4G, okay? Is that a problem? 4G is really fast. It's very well developed. It works today. 5G, if you buy a 5G only device, good luck. Because they've got a tower or two per city. And this is actually upgradable to a dual modem package. And then the professional RVer, which is what we have, this router actually has built-in dual slots. So same performance over here, but it's a 4x MIMO, so now I can aggregate 4 channels. And then this one, later in the year, is going to be upgradable to 5G. So you can add another modem, and it's a real 5G. Any questions on that? Oh, I have a question.
Why would you want more than one SIM slot?
It's a good question. So some of the products, so the SIM is the little device you get from the carrier, right? It goes in your phone, goes in your router. Anyhow, so you've got a cellular modem, right? That modem is what establishes connections to the cell tower, okay? If you have one SIM, you have one option for that modem, right? If the SIM goes bad, if AT&T doesn't work, or if it's a Verizon SIM and Verizon doesn't work, right, then you're not going to work unless you manually pull the SIM out and put in another one.
And what you mean by it doesn't work is slow speeds, unusable speeds?
Yeah, slow speeds, unusable speeds. The SIM goes bad, right? There's no signal there. What's that?
And that's no speed when the SIM goes bad.
Yeah, that's no speed. And we've had problems with 4 SIMs going bad, right? And so the advantage of having 2 SIMs, and these all have 2 SIMs per modem, is if one doesn't work, I can just toggle. Actually, the device, if you get no signal, it will automatically toggle over to the other one and try to initialize that. And it'll keep going back and forth. So in a perfect world, you have a T-Mobile and an AT&T or a Verizon or something like that, and it'll find signal with one of them. You can test it and see if that works. If you have a second modem, right, like you could have in the upper 2, right, then you can have up to 4 SIMs. Why would I need 4 SIMs? There's 3 carriers, right? There used to be 4, but now there's 3. And for us, right, I've got a really cheap AT&T plan, so I'm going to keep that as long as I can. And that's always going to stay with us, and that's going to be my primary, right? Because I haven't hit the ceiling on that thing yet. We did almost a terabyte on it. Now, I know that's abuse, and I don't want to get shut off, but right now, it's working. But I'm constantly working on a plan B. So, did that answer your question, Jim? And who else? Oh.
What if you're using, I have a couple questions. What if you're using like a Mint Mobile that, I think they use a couple of carriers.
Okay.
So does that eliminate the need for the additional SIMs? Because the carrier is managing where the connection is?
Well, so what Mint Mobile did, so they're called an MVNO, right? Mobile virtual network operator. Okay, so they sign licensing agreements, right? And the reason why they might have an agreement with one, because that's with more than one, because that's unusual, right? Is because of coverage areas. So they probably do T-Mobile, which is the cheapest, and probably AT&T if they have both, right? But you're not going to connect to a T-Mobile tower with an AT&T SIM, right? If it's Mint-Mobile, it's by geolocation, right? That thing is going to beacon and it's going to connect with one of the two towers. In the olden days, back when I had less gray, there would be one tower, and it might be AT&T, and they would license use and spectrum to Verizon and to T-Mobile. They're really getting out of that business. They might share a tower, but they're going to have separate networks on that same tower. Okay, so the days of that handing off, and then there's little mom and pop phone companies that are in the mountains and the deserts and stuff like that, and they license with somebody, or what they do is they have their own, and then they license to a big guy, so the big guy doesn't have to build a tower there. So with a Mint Mobile, it's only going to be what you're allowed to use in that space. So that doesn't eliminate that problem. Good try though.
And how long, I mean, I know the mobile, the router is going to work better because it's more rugged. But how long do they typically last, just knowing that technology is changing so quickly?
Well, I bet on 4G being around. Being around and very, very useful for at least 4 or 5 years. 5G rollout is going so slow that there's not enough resources. And by the way, there's been a couple big fires that have burned down chip factories, so now supply is really limited. So this logistical problem we're feeling in a lot of the RV stuff is also in computers and everything else too. So I kind of answered your question, I think. Anything else? Did you have a question?
Well, I think to tell them how long I know the 600's been out for a long time. The 1700s have been in police cars and fire trucks for several years.
Right.
This isn't like it survives 2 years kind of thing.
That's right. How long do they last? That's the part I didn't answer, and the reason why I didn't is I was going to get there. It's a limited lifetime warranty, like everything else is, right? It's like I put Steve on the spot. Steve, share with people later that video of that electrical panel.
Oh.
And he showed me this, and even if that panel or those breakers had a limited lifetime warranty, the fact that there's water filling the conduit and running down through the panel probably would void that warranty, like getting your phone wet, right? So there's caveat, but these things are designed with the highest end components, right, and the highest end engineering. So they operate in extended heat and cold temperatures, as well as they are ruggedized, right? That was really important to me because I didn't want to spend money and then have to spend money again and again and again. So what you get is you get a router and an antenna, right? I've got the two different antennas back there. The Husky is the round one, the Doberman is the smaller one. The only difference is how many ports do I have on that, right? Those are the highest gain antennas in that class that are ruggedized and completely waterproof. It's called IP67 rating, right? You get 3 years of NetCloud support. NetCloud support is the ability for someone to go into your router. So you pick up the phone and you're having a problem, or that person could also be you, right? They can log into NetCloud and you can actually see what your router is doing, right? If your router goes offline, right, and you're not able to log into it, you can check and see if it's still up or what the configuration was the last time it lost connectivity, right? So NetCloud is good for a couple different reasons. Step CG is my fulfillment partner on this. They are the second largest Cradlepoint reseller in the country. Okay, so they sell a lot of these things, and they've got a support desk that is fantastic. It's US located. The other thing that I've included is setup services, right? That's $100. It's built into the price. If you really want to do it without setup, I can take that off or have them take it off, and that's fine. But this is a different kind of animal, and it has built-in firewalls. There's a lot of capabilities, so I'd say even if you're pretty good at it, that's normally $150. I got to take 50 off, right? So that is a good value. On everything, on all the routers, I'm including both AC and DC power cords. That's not standard. AC power cord is really useful if you don't want to wire it into DC, you don't want to wire it into your coach, or you want to take the router with you and just plug it into a wall in a hotel or your kid's house or something like that. I talked about the warranty. The antennas are bundled up back there, right? So there's little paddle antennas and dipole antennas. So the first two packages come standard with those, right? So that's what you use if you unscrew it from your coach antenna and you want to, put it in a hotel or whatever. I do have them available, but it's a lot more antennas, right? It's like 8 antennas. So if you want that, we can do that. And I'm building a part number for a grab and go on that. Any questions on this? Anybody wait? So this is just some more detail, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'll put them up, I'll hit a couple highlights. These two routers are back there and that antenna is back there. I invite you to look at the quality of the antenna. When I went through and looked at their manufacturing, I was really surprised. They epoxy everything, because all antennas is metal and wire wrappings and stuff like that, right? What's going to keep it from rattling apart? The way that they build it, right? Made in Plano, Texas, too. So these antennas also support all of the bands, all of the frequencies. So the antenna, even if you decide to change this, because now 5G is all in, this will support all of the new bands. So the antenna can just stay put. So if you decide to replace or upgrade the router, the antenna is still there, so you don't have to pull out and leave a hole in there, in your roof. Yes, Dave?
You said that the antenna transmits outside the rig too.
Mm-hmm.
So how big does it do, say, a lot of times we'll take our Wi-Fi, we've got the Verizon that he had,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll take it with us in the truck, because when we're driving, sometimes we'll lose T-Mobile, so then we'll use the Wi-Fi. Are you able to pick up that antenna inside the truck, say on your GPS or your phone?
So like when you're moving,
When we're moving.
I'm going to let Cindy tell the story of Las Vegas.
The answer is yes. Because we have it on 12 volt. We were driving out of Vegas into California up that lovely hill, and poof, no power. Pull over, no cell. Brian's looking at me like, and I'm like, connect to the Wi-Fi. We got a hold of it, we got signal, we got him to come out and fix the big hole in the radiator hose. So we use it for GPS, we use it while we're traveling all the time, and I did not think that was any part of this when we first started, but we found that we use it all the time.
Because, sometimes you're driving and you don't have cellular signal, but
Well, there's sometimes you don't
Verizon
have signal anywhere,
So,
but it does make a huge difference. We would have been sitting on the side of the road for a very long time. As it was still a very long time, but we had told someone we were there. So.
And we had a CHP officer stay behind us for hours. It was really nice. So yeah, the other thing you can do, and there's a couple of people, I don't know if they're here, I don't think so, that I've talked to, they said, hey, I want to take that router with me. So if we go take the truck and we go do an adventure or take this Smarty, you can take it. There's even a cigarette lighter adapter too, right? So you can literally take it with you. You can get a different antenna or the little screw-ons, right? So there's a lot of options. So this is the 900. It looks very much the same, higher performance. I talked about that. I'm going to leave some more time for some questions and for Mike to figure out how he's going to give. Actually, he probably hasn't thought about his giveaway with the wine, because he's hoping if he doesn't, no one will notice him carrying it back to his trailer. So this is the 1700. You can see it's physically bigger because it has a built-in slot ready for that 5G or another 4G modem. Okay? And the Husky is very much the Husky. It's big but it's got a very low profile on the roof. Put a hole in, run the cables down. Best practices, don't do it in the middle of your coach unless you've got a place to take the cables down. You can do it where there's a cabinet or something else. That works really well, or a wall.
Don't put it in a slide.
Yeah. Or try to run it through a sewer vent pipe. The next slide I've got is talking about MIMO. If anyone wants to talk about that, I will. But I wanted to just kind of stop and talk and please.
I was gonna say you could talk about different SIM cards, and it probably doesn't apply much to this group, but for like the first responders and stuff, first net exists also.
Yep.
Which is my backup plan, because that's no throttling and network priority. But then you have to have credentials to get that plan.
You know, that's a good point. So, and the good news is Cradlepoint honors those credentials, right? So if you're a first responder and can get the credentials, you can get a first responder SIM, right? Which is no throttling. I mean, you get the fastest speed and you get priority connectivity.
Yes.
So-
It's very nice.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
So, again, that's my backup. That's not what I use primarily, but I have used it before.
What do you do? If you
Paramedic.
Huh?
Paramedic.
Can you swear me in as a deputy medic?
Ready to go to my class tomorrow?
Okay. All right.
That's all. You have to sign up to your you have to sign up to your agency, but yeah.
Right. So, any other questions, thoughts?
What category is low?
The category is, this is category 18, the 900 is category 18, that's why. I was going to use that, and I thought, why not use language that people have a better hope of understanding? Most people know what gigabits are and megabits are, right? The other one is a category, Jim knows. 6, it's a category 6. So these are, the only one that's faster than that is the category 20, which is 5G, okay? So this, I mean, honestly, you can buy cheaper stuff, but I don't think you can buy anything better, right? I mean, that's what I went with, right? It's why I bought an HDT. We had a completely capable RAM, right? That was maxed out for everything. And I kept thinking, how am I going to stop this thing, right? Or how's Cindy going to stop this when we're going downhill? Someone does a brake check on us. It's wet. It's like Jim and Kelly driving through Montana and it's snowing, right? I mean, if you've got to get on the brakes and you're on that RAM, that coach is going to push you right down the road, right? What if you brake, right? One time, we plugged in, wasn't all the way in, and she says, it doesn't, the brake, I don't know if the trailer brakes, and she looked at the thing and it wasn't on. It's like, holy crap, it wasn't plugged all the way in. But the truck could stop the damn coach, right? So that's kind of my approach to life. It's like, if I don't think we're safe, right? We've worked way too hard to get to this point in our life, right? This close to retirement. I'm not gonna take a stupid chance, right? And by the way, the truck was about the same price as the HDT. So
You move from home, you're using it at home, you're connected to your fiber optic, and then you can come over and still use it. You can just carry it into your trailer and go from there.
So let me qualify this. Do you have internet at home?
Yes.
What is it?
It's DSL.
Okay, and so it has an Ethernet plug. You plug the Ethernet into here or here or here, and then you have DSL on that. Okay, so yes, and it will assign you the IP addresses and all that.
And just so you know, because we did this before we sold our house with our Verizon hotspot, I had my $70, $80 a month internet bill, which actually has gone up even higher. My Wi-Fi worked good enough, we got rid of it. For a year, we were using just that little box that Jim had for our internet in our house.
And
So
we
if you
have
had
5
that in
TVs
your house
and
with
4
your
computers and everything.
modem and everything, you could get rid of your at-home cable. So that monthly bill is now gone. So it didn't pay for itself.
Did you have a question? Anybody? There was 3. There was 3
Oh,
hands.
wait, a follow-up question then.
Oh, okay.
If I'm using it at home, I don't need the,
You don't need to rent the router. From a DSL, there's something called a DSL modem. You will need a DSL modem because that converts the DSL signal from the phone company into internet, right? So then you plug that in.
Just
Most
like
times you
any
can get a
SIM card.
DSL modem for free, right? Because it's part of the service, and they want to upsell you to their router, and they rent that to you for $10 a month, right, or
Yeah.
$15 a month. Okay, so as long as it's Ethernet coming out, then you can plug it straight in to the WAN port of that. Okay,
Now there is,
but I won't need the antenna or any of that at home.
you won't.
But I would still need to put it on my rig.
Yeah, you would use the little antennas, and you'll find that those antennas are way better than the stuff that comes on either the built-in or even like a Netgear 9R.
now, just to, the one thing that I had was that Verizon plan that was unlimited. So if you do use that as your home, you'd still be,
Yeah, I don't have that.
so.
So, anybody else?
Do you have any kind of, cellular plan now, SIM card, any kind of affiliation?
Did you guys hear? Wants to know if I have any cellular data plans. I did, and then he got cut off. And so now I'm working with a guy who's working directly with the cellular companies, right? And it is they're putting these things in all these categories, right? So it has to be designed specifically for residential, rural. We're rural, right? We're as rural as anybody, right? So we qualify on that. So he's working to get me that. I hope to have that by today, but he's working and signing the papers. So I've asked for all three. I've asked for AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. And for any of you, so there's mobile internet aficionados, right? Those guys are great. That's one of my main resources. But I've really dug into this, and the guy I've been working with is actually becoming an MVNO. So he's a legal reseller. So he's not getting those tablet plans and reselling SIMs. So because I don't want the interruptions, right?
But Brian, it's not our plan. We are just directing
Oh,
it to his.
Yeah.
He's
It
a
isn't gonna be
resource. It's
our
not
plans.
ours.
And I'm looking for multiple sources, right? It's because, again, for us, I don't know, I'm gonna have at least two.
I would like to add to that a little bit. We've been talking about free carriers, and I worked for Verizon Wireless for 25 years in operations. And I reside with a small carrier right now, and then go to the bigger boys when I travel.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you need to do is push more for the smaller boys, because they're willing to work where the big boys don't. So when you get in an area where you want a smaller boy, you may want to start looking at more than 3 players, and looking at 6, or 8, or 10, because they're out there.
So can I put you on the spot and have you give an example of one?
Frank DeRico is the president of Euro Wireless. He owns about 800 to 1,000 towers. He's a millionaire, or a million. He's a billion. He's a millionaire. I personally know him. I have a tower of his on my land in Nebraska. And he, just the small guys really look against the big guys and provide a plan and coverage in the rural areas. In Nebraska, he's probably better than the other coverage. In a lot of places, he goes in those bigger middle of nowhere. If you're in the middle of nowhere, sand hills, you may get his signal and you won't get Verizon, you won't get T-Mobile. So I use his as number one. I push on GSM, I push to T-Mobile, AT&T, wherever I can get. Another one's Union, Woody Brothers in Wyoming. You come right across 80. They've got towers all over.
And
they're all in Wyoming.
Yep. Well, and that's good coaching, because some of those, so they're affiliates. So if you're out of that area,
they have to work with these. The government makes them work with those small boys.
Right. And so what happens is they can use data. Now, a warning, right? Because I used to have a place in Grand Lake, Colorado, and it was Union.
Yes,
right?
I know.
And I had an AT&T plan, and because I began working.
Union Cellular is Woody Brothers.
Yep. So what happened then is they said, oh, you have overused our agreement number with AT&T,
Okay.
and they shut me off, right? So, but the small guys are a really good way. It's just, I mean, this, you know, if you learn it, you can get a doctoral thesis on it, because it's like a game of 3-card Monte, right? And you're saying, that's the queen. How does he do that, right? So guys have got, you know, they're the dealer on this, but there is other ways, and I think Starlink is going to put a bunch of pressure on them.
Yeah.
I believe it, but Starlink's going to have to prove itself first.
Well, depending on how much government money they get and support, I suppose.
Yep, yeah, well, there's a lot of broadband money out there right now. So, any other questions, thoughts? Want to talk about mine? Just kidding. We're over time, so I think it's lunchtime. Right, Chad? So, lunch is being served.
So it's a long lunch today, the next thing is you tell.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that presentation. I hope you found it informative and useful. If you have questions about it, you're welcome to contact us through our email, which is always in the video description, or contact Bryan directly at RV Mobile Connect. And of course, all the technical questions you would want to ask him, because he's going to have the answers to those. This is a system that we are going to be getting to use for ourselves, and so in the future, once we work out the logistics of getting it shipped to us and so forth, we'll have more information on that down the road. Until next week, have a blessed week.